US researchers have discovered the possible remains of Noah's Ark using advanced radar technology. A ship-shaped formation is said to be Noah's Ark in Turkey. Let's deep dive to this AI podcast.
The image of this enormous ship saving life from a worldwide flood. It's a story that just resonates, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Through ages, cultures, the idea of Noah's Ark is just captivating.
It really is.
And today, we're really digging into something specific happening right now in Turkey at a place called the Durupinar Formation.
Yes, we've been looking at a report on some, pretty recent scientific work there. It's a really unusual geological site.
So what's our mission for this deep dive then?
Essentially, to unpack the evidence that this report presents about Durupinar and, explore what it might mean for the whole Noah's Ark question.
Okay, let's set the scene a bit. Most people know the basics, right? The Bible story, huge flood, maybe 4,300 years ago or more.
Right.
And Noah builds this massive ark to save his family, animals, pairs of everything. So fast forward to today, we're looking at this, it's a boat-shaped thing in eastern Turkey.
Exactly. The Durupinar Formation, it's about, 18 miles south of Mount Ararat, which is, of course, the mountain usually linked with the Ark landing.
And how it even came to light is quite the story itself, isn't it?
Absolutely. It wasn't like some planned expedition found it initially.
It was more nature revealing it. I read about heavy rains, earthquakes, back in May 1948.
That's the account, yes. Supposedly eroded away a lot of the earth around it.
And then a local Kurdish shepherd spots it, this huge boat-like shape just appearing. You have to wonder what went through his mind, right?
Definitely sparked something. I mean, the speculation hasn't really stopped since. And now, more recently, you've got this research team, Noah's Ark Scans.
Led by Andrew Jones, yeah.
Yeah.
They're really focusing on the site.
And their main tool seems to be ground-penetrating radar, GPR.
GPR. Okay, that sounds high-tech. Can you give us the quick version of how that actually works? Like, what does it do?
Think of it like radar or sonar, but for the ground, it sends these electromagnetic pulses down.
Okay.
And when those pulses hit something different underground, different soil, maybe rock, maybe something else, they bounce back.
Right.
And by analyzing how those waves return, the researchers can build up a picture, sort of an image, of what's buried there without actually digging. They're looking for anomalies, things that don't look natural.
Gotcha. And the first results from using this GPR at Durupinar,
Yeah.
they're making some waves. It seems the report mentions a tunnel.
Yeah, a structure they interpret as a tunnel about 13 feet wide running right down the middle of the formation.
Huh. That's specific.
It is. And maybe even more interesting, the radar data also seems to show 3 distinct layers underneath the surface.
3 layers. Now, wait. Doesn't the Genesis account describe the Ark having 3 decks?
It does. Genesis 6.16, lower, second, and third decks. So yeah, finding potentially 3 layers with the GPR, that correlation is pretty striking.
It really makes you pause. Okay, so layers, maybe a central tunnel.
Yeah.
Anything else from the GPR?
Well, they're also reporting what look like angular structures, things that could be internal walls or rooms.
Like compartments.
Sort of, extending down maybe 20 feet. And again, if you go back to Genesis, chapter 6, verse 14, it says, make rooms in the ark. So again, another potential alignment.
We should be careful here, though. I mean, after 4,000 plus years, you wouldn't expect a perfectly preserved wooden ship, would you?
Oh, highly unlikely. No.
So what are they actually hoping the GPR is picking up? Is it wood?
Not necessarily intact wood, no. Andrew Jones has talked about this. They're hoping maybe for chemical traces, the signatures left behind as wood decays over such a long time.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe just changes in soil density, patterns in the ground where structures used to be, kind of like an imprint left in the earth.
A chemical ghost, almost.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, moving from under the ground to the soil on the ground. They've been testing that too, right?
Yes, soil analysis.
Oh.
There's a soil scientist involved, William Crabtree.
And what's he finding? Is the soil different there?
Well, the first thing Crabtree apparently noticed was just visual. The grass growing on the formation looked different color than the grass nearby.
Interesting. Like the soil underneath was affecting it.
That was the suggestion. And when they tested it, yes, they found differences. Significantly higher organic matter inside the formation. About twice as high as the soil just outside it.
Twice as high. Okay. Anything else?
And this is maybe the key, finding potassium levels. Significantly higher inside the formation, around 40% higher than the surrounding soil.
Potassium. Why is that important if you're thinking about, say, an ancient wooden boat?
Well, wood naturally contains quite a bit of potassium as it decays slowly over centuries, millennia. that potassium gets released into the soil.
Oh, I see.
So finding much higher potassium levels concentrated right there in the formation's footprint. It's consistent with what you'd expect from a huge amount of wood decomposing over a very long time.
It's like a chemical fingerprint.
That's a good way to put it. Crabtree himself pointed out, the high potassium, the high organic content, even changes in pH. It all fits the picture of a wooden vessel decaying in place for thousands of years.
So, GPR suggesting internal structure, soil chemistry suggesting decayed wood.
What about the size? The sheer scale of this?
Yeah, the dimensions.
The Bible gives measurements in cubits, right?
It does. 300 cubits long, 50 wide, 30 high.
And what does that translate to, roughly, in feet?
It works out to approximately 515 feet long, about 86 feet wide, and maybe 52 feet tall.
Okay. And the Durupinar Formation, how does it measure up?
That's the other really remarkable thing. Its length and width,
Yeah.
they match those biblical dimensions very, very closely.
Wow. That alignment is pretty hard to just dismiss, isn't it?
It's definitely one of the points the research team emphasizes.
Of course, this kind of investigation, touching on something so significant historically, religiously, there are going to be other views. The report does mention geologists who think it's natural, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's the main counter-argument. Many geologists propose natural explanations.
Like what? What
Yeah.
kind of natural process could make a shape like that? Well, you can get things like synclines or anticlines, basically folds in the rock layers that weather in unusual ways. Sometimes erosion can carve out shapes that look vaguely boat-like, especially if there are different rock types eroding at different rates.
Okay.
But the Noah's Ark scans team argues back that, the GPR findings, the internal structure it seems to show, plus the specific soil chemistry, they feel that makes a purely natural explanation less convincing for this particular site.
So it's an ongoing debate, clearly. What's next for the researchers then? How do they plan to get more evidence?
They've got a few things planned. First, more soil sampling. They've done 22 spots so far, but they want to expand that, get a much broader picture across the formation and around it.
Makes sense.
And probably quite crucially, they're planning a core drilling survey.
Drilling down into it.
Exactly, to get samples from much deeper inside. That could potentially tell them a lot more about what's really down there, the composition, the structure at depth.
And more GPR work, too.
Yes, more extensive scans. They want to build a more detailed 3D map of what's beneath the surface. And also do more side-by-side comparisons, soil inside versus soil just outside the boundary, to really nail down those chemical differences.
Sounds like they're trying to be pretty systematic about it. Yeah. Andrew Jones, the lead researcher, has a clear goal, according to the report.
Yeah, he basically says their aim is to gather enough solid evidence to figure out, one way or the other, if this formation is the remains of Noah's Ark. He definitely understands how significant that would be.
It really throws a spotlight on this whole area where science and, well, faith or ancient texts seem to meet, doesn't it?
It really does. You have modern scientific tools being used to investigate a story that's incredibly ancient and, for many, deeply spiritual.
It makes you think about how we understand the past and how evidence and narrative can sometimes potentially line up. Okay, so let's just quickly recap what we've covered. We dove into this Durupinar Formation in Turkey, looking at these recent scientific studies. We talked about the GPR findings, those hints of internal structures, layers, maybe rooms that echo the Ark's description.
Right, the potential 3 decks, the compartments.
And the soil chemistry, that extra organic matter, the really high potassium levels, suggesting, maybe a massive amount of decayed wood over a long time.
Consistent with that kind of decomposition, yes.
And finally, the dimensions. The fact that the formation's size lines up so well with the biblical measurements for the Ark.
But it's really important for you listening to remember this is still very much under investigation. The evidence is compelling to the team, but it's debated. It's not settled science yet.
Absolutely. And that leaves us with something for you to think about. If, and it's still a big if, but if future research were to definitively link the Durupinar Formation to Noah's Ark, how might that change the way we look at history, at ancient texts?
What other ideas or beliefs, maybe things we take for granted, might suddenly seem, worth re-examining?
It's a huge question. For now, the mystery continues, right?
Yeah.
We'll just have to wait and see what future discoveries might bring from this pretty remarkable place in Turkey.
How reliable is ground-penetrating radar in identifying such structures deep buried underground? Comment it. Thanks.